Um, this is what I was supposed to talk about, according to Tiago. By the way, Tiago, who can organize something like this at his age, I am stunned. I'm really impressed by what he's put together. So a huge congratulations to him and the team. We were joking this morning that at 19 we weren't doing things like this. So this is what I was going to talk about, and I'll run through it in 60 seconds. I help to oversee the global operations of the Huffington Post. We are in 10 countries. When I started, we were in one country, the United States. When I began with the Huffington Post, we were at roughly 45 million users or readers. Now we're over 90 million around the world. We're regarded as the biggest social publisher on the web. Depending on whose numbers you look at, we're number 1 on Facebook, number 2 on Twitter. Sometimes those numbers switch around. 2 years ago, we won a Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. We've had crazy growth. It's been kind of unbelievable. In less than a decade, the Huffington Post has become the number 1 or number 2 news website in the United States. Then behind Yahoo, and I sort of joke like, is Yahoo really a news website, or is it just a search engine that has a website, a news website attached to it? I was going to talk a little bit about how to lead and manage a team that's very, very large. I oversee a huge set of newsrooms, particularly in the United States, and coordinating their coverage is a kind of like exercise in controlling chaos all the time. And then I was going to talk about how to lead a media company that has scale and substance and a lot of attitude, all with a Greek accent, because Ariana has that famous accent. And I'll do an imitation later if somebody asks the question. You've seen us do things like this. This is called our splash. It's our iconic real estate. We've used this real estate to drive a conversation in a lot of different topics, and now in a lot of different countries. We have an outpost in Brazil as well, where we partnered with a grill to create a destination for people to come and consume the news and consume it on our platform with our voice and our attitude. We've done a lot of different things, and we've been all over the world, and it's a mix of substantive stuff. It's a mix of cats who can't jump. We do travel, we do lifestyle, we do entertainment, we do politics, business news, a little bit of everything. And so I'm happy to talk about any of these things, but I've done a lot of different stuff, and I feel like there are people in the audience who are just at the point in your careers or in your education where you're making a lot of decisions about what to do next, about what to pay attention to, about kind of how you want to chart your course in the world. And I'm not much older than most of the people in this room. I'm only 28, but I've had the luxury of living several different lives. So I thought I would kind of distill some of those lessons, which I distilled at like 3 o'clock in the morning last night, in classic Huffington Post and online fashion. What I'm going to talk about is 10 things that you absolutely need to know, but that almost no one tells you. You've probably seen lists from various websites, and this is in classic list fashion. I like the joke that like BuzzFeed and Upworthy and Huffington Post think that they invented the list, but actually like it goes back to like the 10 Commandments. It's not called the Commandments, it's called the 10 Commandments. Number 1, read constantly, and then read some more. So I bet that if we pulled all of the people who have spoken to you in the last 24 hours together on stage, maybe the only common thing across all of these entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, media people, would be this one thing. I bet you that they are just above average consumers of articles, of books, of really written material of any kind. If there's one thing, people say, like, what do you do differently? And I say, like, I am constantly absorbing information from whatever source. I carve out time to read like people carve out time to go to the gym. Like it is my one mainstay in my life, the constant that I always come back to ever since I was a little kid. No matter what's going on, I am constantly reading. And the truth is, people say like mentorship is important, but sometimes the best mentors you can get are the people who are thousands of years old or hundreds of years old who have passed away long ago. But all of their wisdom is available in books that you can get at the library, and it'll cost you nothing, and you'll get the best education you can possibly hope for. Frankly, I got more out of the books that I read than most of the classes I took in college, and I can imagine that for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of other folks who are up on the stage, that's probably true as well. Your available time and your available risk tend to go down as your age goes up. This is very, very important for the people in this room. You're probably never going to be in a better position than you are right now to do that crazy thing that you've always wanted to do. As you get older, the amount of time you have and the amount of risk you're willing to take goes down pretty substantially. And people like to say that that's not going to be true for them. Like, no. It's on the exception. I'm going to have tons of time. I'm always going to have this kind of freedom. It's not going to happen. It's better to just accept it and do all the crazy stuff you want to do. Launch the business, write the book, try the insane endeavor that you don't think will be successful when you're much, much younger. That was true for me. I left my job at McKinsey, and I had a book idea, and I went and just decided to do it because I knew that if I waited 5 or 10 years, I might not actually want to do it. I might not be able to move from Chicago to Washington on a whim. When I took the job working for Ariane at Huffington Post, I moved my entire life from Washington to New York in a week and a half. And just stopped everything and left. You won't have that kind of time, flexibility, and capacity for risk as you grow older. And some people may do, but I think it's like the 1% who do. So embrace that, especially when you're sitting where you're sitting right now. Willpower is a finite resource. Lean on others. There's a pretty good body of scientific evidence that supports this crazy claim. Your willpower goes down as you make decisions throughout the day. So if you have to do hard things, they suggest do them in the morning because you have more willpower to do them in the morning. The way that you can solve for this, or at least the way that I have found that I can solve for it, is to always lean on others. The Huffington Post is a team. We are a very, very tight team, and we depend on each other to get stuff done. And it seems like this is, it can sound like a little bit of a cliche, but the truth is, you are just so much more effective when you're working with other people. Almost all of the founders that you'll see up here had great teams. None of them did any of their work on their own. When I wrote my book, I knew I was really young, and I knew that I might not have the discipline or the talent to do it. So I contacted one of my best friends to do, and we co-wrote the book. I really am a big believer that you can be accountable to other people, and that you can lean on other people to sort of help your own willpower. Aristotle was right. Habits are everything. This is one of those things that you don't really come to appreciate until you start to mess around with changing your habits. And I think that you're not really self-aware of it necessarily until you start to change your habits. But those little decisions you make every day can add up a lot. That's one of the things that we really talk about at the Huffington Post. That little decisions we make every day, little stories we write every day, can help to move a big national story. We've been one of the places that's covered things like poverty and inequality in a really substantive way, but those are little decisions, those are little habits we form along the way. I enjoy running. When I was young, I was a terrible runner. I couldn't run at all. It was little steps along the way that led me to start running kind of long races, very long races, including ultramarathons and other crazy things. And now it comes back to me that all of those were little decisions in habit formation. Clear writing is clear thinking. Learn how to write and you will learn how to think. I cannot tell you the number of people that I have met in my professional life who do not know how to write a clean sentence, or a clean resume, or a clean cover letter, or an email. We learned a little bit about the importance of email when we talked about the email that Tiago sent us. And one of the things that was great about the email was that it was very clearly written. It was very clear what he was offering, what he wanted us to do. This is maybe the most important skill outside of programming that will be relevant for the 21st century. Clear writing is clear thinking. And if you can learn to express yourself clearly, you can actually get very far. And I can give you one very specific tip on how to write clearly. You're never going to learn at writing papers that one professor reads. It's just not going to happen. You're going to learn to do it if you're publishing writing for a very big audience. So I learned to write not in classes in school, but because I wrote for the school paper. And every week I had to write like 1,000 words for the school paper. And I knew that every one of my friends was going to read it. And that was like such a source of potential embarrassment that the writing had to be really, really good because they were going to make fun of me if it wasn't good. And you will, if you hold yourself accountable in that way, in that big public way, you may actually be more successful. So you'll ask yourself then, like, how do I do that? Start a blog and tell your friends about it. Start a blog and share that stuff on Facebook because it will make you a better writer. When you have to put those sorts of things out into the world consistently, you'll improve as a writer. And if you improve as a writer, you'll improve as a thinker. We overestimate our impact on everything. We underestimate the impact everything has on us. One of the reasons I chose to go into journalism was because I wanted to be surrounded by journalists. I didn't think I was the greatest journalist in the world. I didn't think that I had any special talents or skills, but I knew that the talent and the skill of the people around me would actually impact me quite a bit. One of my friends has an expression. He says, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so the question for you is, what are going to be the ingredients, right? Who are going to be the people who constitute your life? We always have a tendency to say, I'm going to have a huge impact in this organization. And what we neglect is the organization has a huge impact on us. Whatever course you decide to take, you really pay a lot of attention to the people that are around you when you're doing what you're doing. I joined journalism because I wanted to be surrounded by good writers who were very smart and very skeptical and had a good sense of humor. And Huffington Post is filled with people who are smart, skeptical, who all have a good sense of humor. And their qualities have had a bigger impact on me than I have had on the institution, and that is worth keeping in mind as you make your career. Everyone has a book to write. I was really lucky about 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, I published a book called Rome's Last Citizen, and it's about an ancient Roman senator whose name was Cato. He's the arch nemesis of Julius Caesar, and he's an incredibly interesting guy. And the reason that I wrote the book about him is not because I have no special training in Roman history other than like a love for it. I went on Amazon, and I went on Amazon because I wanted to buy a biography of Cato. And when I didn't find one, I just said, well, this doesn't exist, I should just do it myself. And that's how the project came to be. I'm a big believer in the idea that every single person in this room has a book to write. Because all of you have some quirky interests that you have expertise in, or you just have a bunch of great stories to tell. You would be surprised how easy it is to write a book once you actually decide that you're going to write a book. It's a little bit like starting a business in that way. Once you sort of set your mind to it, all of these other things will fall into place. So once I decided that I was going to write the book on Cato, I had a lot of people contacting me saying, hey, I found this article of this guy Cato, or hey, I snapped this photo in Rome of a statue of Cato, here you go. The universe bends itself to support you when you decide what that idea is going to be. And so my kind of challenge to all of you is figure out what book you want to write, because you can probably do it if you want to. Don't be a one-trick pony. Diversify. This is an American expression, but I imagine it's not that hard to understand. I think that one of the mistakes that a lot of young people make, but a lot of really successful young people make, is that they put all of their emotional investment and energy into one thing. If I have a bad day at Huffington Post, and Huffington Post is 100% of the way I spend my time, then 100% of my day was bad. But I do a lot of other things. And one of my friends calls it the three-legged stool. He says he always has 3 legs to his stool. Like, he's never got one thing going on, he's got 3 things going on, because even if one thing fails, like 2 things are still there, right? He really has a couple of different things that he has going on to make sure that even if one thing goes badly, he's got things he can depend on that can pick him up during the day. This is especially true for people who are starting businesses. Like, businesses can be huge commitments of emotion and energy and like all your willpower and all your skill. And if that's the only thing that you have going on and you have a bad day, then everything else is soured because of it. For me, I have other things I'm doing. I'm constantly writing. I'm constantly running and trying new things all the time. And Huffington Post and media in general can be a very tough place to work. The news cycle never stops. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so for me, not being a one-trick pony is very, very important. The way to get noticed is to be so good they can't ignore you. This is an expression from the comedian Steve Martin, be so good they can't ignore you, when they asked him how he became successful. I think a few of you in the audience, when I've done my small mentorship sessions with the entrepreneurs, have asked, how do I get attention from a place like the Huffington Post? How do I get noticed from TechCrunch? How do I have Mashable write about me? And this is always my answer. We're all writing about Facebook because they have 1.2 billion people. We're writing about Uber. We're writing about Snapchat. We're writing about WhatsApp. Be so good that we can't ignore you. If you're pitching to me, there are much smaller odds that I'm going to write about you than if you are doing something so amazing or so impressive that I'm the one knocking on your door to say, hey, can I write about you? That is the way to get attention. And most of you in the audience might be like, well, yeah, isn't that obvious? You would be surprised how few people actually pay attention to a maxim like this. The way for you to get noticed by somebody like me or somebody who's in a similar position in the media is to get so good, is to get so big, is to have a product so unique that we cannot ignore you even if we try. And the last one. No one is prepared, everyone is faking it. There was a version of this that I think Andy said yesterday, but it's really true. I became managing editor when I was 26 years old. There was no way I should be managing editor when I was 26 years old. But the truth is, there's nothing that can prepare you for an experience like that. Even 10 years from now, I wouldn't have been prepared for an experience like that. And most of the people who started businesses on the stage will tell you virtually the same thing. No one is prepared for it. It happens, and you make it up as you go along. And that's okay, because roughly everybody is doing the same thing. So with that, I will just leave the rest of the time for questions and comments and observations. I'm happy to talk about book writing, happy to talk about media, really happy to